Hey everybody, today we sit down with Matt Vann and talk to him about nuclear weapons, starting with the Trinity test, beginning with the Manhattan Project, and ending with the current state of nuclear weapons in today's world. This one is a little bit of a long video, but stick with it because it has a lot of good information on there, and it's always a pleasure to sit down and talk with Matt, who's one of the more interesting people that I know. So thank you for watching and enjoy. We're here with Matt. You have a blog. It's
Matt's World O Wonders. Yeah.
And I think we've talked about you a couple of times, but we've never had you actually on any of the videos or anything that we've done. So this is the first time that we've gotten you on here. And then for anyone that watches Tim Kreitz's videos, you make appearances on that every now and then.
Yeah, I've been on Tim Kreitz Adventures a few times. He's a moto vlogger, of course. And you did a feature on the band, and I'm Tim's bass player. So
and we had you. Yeah. I mean, in the band shots for that. So for this one, we're gonna be talking about the Trinity site, and just to kind of get a little bit of background on that. How much do you know about the Trinity site?
The site itself, like I said, I've been by it. I've been to. I used to go to a soaring sailplane competition in Alamogordo. That's out of that little municipal airport. We used to go once a year. And I got really interested in the Aerospace Museum. It's more of a kind of on the NASA side. And then 2014, I went to the White Sands. It's actually the little military base for the missile range with Cliff, and not so much nuclear, but had some of the nuclear capable vehicles and all that. And been to the coolest museum I've ever been to is in Albuquerque. And I went with Nicole 2015, I guess, the Atomic Energy Museum. And the reason we went, we had gone for a concert and wound up doing the Breaking Bad tour. And that's where they filmed a couple scenes, so picked up a little bit there.
One of the things that I kind of thought was interesting with the whole thing was how fast it all happened.
Yeah.
Because they said with the Manhattan Project, which in '42, and then whenever they actually went to test the bombs themselves, I know I was reading in that little pamphlet that they gave us in, I think it was April of '45. They did a 100-ton TNT, and then they went to July 15th, or the 12th or the 15th, I don't remember the exact, and they did the atomic bomb testing, and then in August they dropped the bomb in Hiroshima. So I mean, it seemed like it went really quick.
They were definitely on the move. And what's really amazing when you get into that, if you take even high school physics, and you get more and more into the math, everything they did, these guys were doing it with slide rules. The computers they had were primitive. I think they used, on the actual drops, I think they used the Norton bomb sight. And when you look at that thing, it is absolutely incredible. The technology, it's all analog. It's again slide rule stuff, and that's what impresses me. It's the most impressive thing about the whole Manhattan Project. It was all done by hand.
What can you kind of talk about as far as Manhattan Project? I mean,
I know some of the stuff I've read and stayed up on. In fact, we had a conversation about this the other night. In the enrichment process, they were making the core on the first bomb basically with one molecule at a time. That was the crazy part. That was one of the things that was taking so long. Later on, when they figured out how to do it more and more, they went from I think, what was first? Implosion?
I think it was.
It's implosion, and then they had the cannon came after that, and then later into hydrogen and all. A little bit about that technology. They were really concerned. That's right. The first one was implosion because it has all the detonators on it. How much trouble they had getting all that to fire at the same time and crush the core and get it started. That's what was really amazing to me. And what really the part that I know more about, again, I'm more on the armament side, is how they went absolutely crazy making nuclear everything after that. I mean, everything. It was pop culture, man. They had nuclear toys, and they had nuclear cannon, nuclear recoilless rifles, unguided rockets, all this stuff that they were ready to throw at enemies. That was just, some of it was dangerous as hell.
At the actual site itself, they have your parking and everything for it, and then right on the outside they have just this, there's really no other way to kind of say it except a giant metal tube.
Yeah.
And that was that jumbo. And then from everything that I've kind of seen on that, I guess the idea was that they were going to do the explosion inside the jumbo casing. And then had everything gone right, it would have just vaporized, and if anything had gone wrong, if the plutonium didn't explode,
if they didn't get the chain reaction going,
then it would have stayed inside that casing, and that way they would be able to retrieve it.
Yeah, that's right. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, I remember reading as a kid that entire tower was vaporized.
Yeah,
I mean, it was completely. Well, I guess, was it sublimated is the word, solid directly to gas. It was really amazing when you watch the explosions, is you can actually see it cut through the layers of the air as it goes up, and then of course you have the shock wave and all that after, which is pushing moisture. All explosions do that. I mean, there's nothing. All explosions are basically mushroom clouds. They all do shock waves and all that, but just the magnitude that the nuke did. I was mystified for years what the little ribbons were. Have you seen those?
I don't know if I've seen those.
When it goes off, when you see the explosion, and you'll see the cloud coming up, you'll always see these trails. They're in a row. There's equidistant little trails that go all the way up. Those are sounding rockets, and they're just high-speed, high-altitude rocket that measures weather conditions, temperature, barometric pressure, things like that. Does it in a time sequence so it can tell them, and this is all analog telemetry, how hot it is at a certain temperature, and they use those to kind of watch the explosion.
The Manhattan Project started in June of 42. And they were just set up to design and build the atomic bomb, and then they went around and started looking for test sites for everything. And did you know that they actually were looking about 8 different places?
Yeah,
and one of them was in Texas.
Yeah, it was one of the parts of the barrier island out there. I can't remember which one it is, but yeah, you drive out. Cliff and I had this conversation during that trip. And we were just standing there looking out across the landscape, and we thought, this is the perfect place to do this. Mm-hmm. It's like a bunch of guys sat around and go, man, we just need a place where we can shoot off a bunch of rockets and stuff. And you know what, man? One of these days, we just put a monkey in space or something if we wanted to. That's the place to do it, man. There's just nothing out. Yeah. It's amazing. And because you got, of course, Holloman Air Force Base there now. And what's close? Alamogordo, and then the little White Sands installation, and that's it. It's just open.
The fall of 1944, they started getting there to the actual site, and then, like I said, they had the jumbo. They put all that out there, and then that's whenever they started going in with all the testings. But then they have that, I guess it's a ranch house that's out there, and that's where they did all the assembly for the actual plutonium in the casing and all of that for it. So
there's a lot of fascinating stuff to it. The Albuquerque Museum, they have the car that I think the core was transported. I can't remember. I think it's softball size, and they have a mock-up of the actual device. What did they call it? Was it the device? Something like that. They had a name for it. But yeah, they had all that stuff mocked up at that other museum. It's amazing to look at.
So July 12th, the two hemispheres of the plutonium were moved from the ranch house to the ground zero. And I have a quote from Brigadier General Thomas Farrell, who said, "I recalled that I asked them if I was going to sign for it, shouldn't I take it and handle it. So I took this heavy ball in my hand, and I felt it growing warm. I got a certain sense of its hidden power. It wasn't a cold piece of metal. It was really a piece of metal that seemed to be working inside. Then, maybe for the first time, I began to believe some of the fantastic tales the scientists had told me about this nuclear power." So,
can you imagine that holding the core in your hand? That's the. I read somewhere that the big nuclear ships, naval vessels, that the core is softball size. I mean, and that's to see something softball size release that much energy is just amazing. And what's crazy I've seen it in documentaries and stuff that I read. I recently read Skunk Works, which is an amazing book. Despite all the work they had done, everything that they knew, everything they'd studied, they had no idea what was going to happen when they pulled the trigger. I mean, I can't say I had no idea. They weren't sure which option it was going to be. There was a theory that once you start slinging those subatomic particles around, the chain reaction would never stop. Like, they didn't know where it was going to stop. But the money was on it not working. Nobody thought, or a lot of people thought, I can't remember who said this, they were worried about timing the implosion to actually crush it, and that was the hardest part, which is why they went to the gun later. Apparently, once they came up with a different sort of core that they could produce faster, and they used the gun system instead of the implosion, that wasn't a concern. But there was, you talk about clockwork making all that happen at the same time. I know just from I've had really basic explosives training, and just to get two charges to go off, to think about how fast the det cord runs, and just a slight difference in the length of a det cord between the start and the detonation, the charge, it alters the timing. So you have all this junk in the sphere that's starting at the same place, in one origin, and you have to get all that to happen at the same time. And so everything has to be perfect. Everything has to be identical. Even the temperature has to be the same everywhere. So neat stuff.
Yep. See, now I don't know just a whole lot about nuclear and radioactivity and all of that. So is that not an issue for these guys at this point? I mean, as far as carrying around that softball size?
That I don't know. What they had in the first one, I don't really understand the decay on it. As the stuff became more volatile over the years, that became a huge deal.
Yeah.
But I really don't know that much about that one in particular.
On Friday, the 13th in the midnight, they left the assembly and they went to the Trinity site. And then I guess that's where they have the actual tower that you were saying got vaporized. And they actually still have the bottom row for it, or the bottom rung, I guess.
Yeah, it's basically some stuff poking up out of the ground.
Yeah, just some pieces poking out of the ground. That was the only thing that was left. And I couldn't really find anything or a definite answer on this, so I don't know if you know. But did they have it set up, and did they, basically just explode it at that elevated height, or did they drop it down and then?
No, they hoisted it and detonated it.
So they detonated it.
Yeah, they don't. Impact doesn't have anything to do with it. In fact, like when they drop them or launch them out of a rocket or cannon or slingshot or whatever they could come up with, if it hits the ground, it's not going to work.
Okay.
So also artillery bombs and all that tend to be more effective if they're detonated at an altitude.
Okay.
Because it actually rains its effect downward, except for things that are designed to punch through buildings and into bunkers and underground stuff like that. So yeah, it was all done, and even the production, even the weapon versions were detonated at altitude.
It was scheduled for 4 a.m. on the 16th, but it was raining, so they had to postpone. and then they got a window, like a 2-hour window that they were able to do it, and 5:29 and 45 seconds is when they detonated the actual bomb. And then again, going back to this little pamphlet that I got, it was saying that they had 3 observation points, just I guess triangulated around it, and that way they were able to kind of look into everything. So, but a couple of things that people said: it looked like a giant magnesium flare which kept on for what seemed like a whole minute, but was actually 1 or 2 seconds. So I've never seen anything like that, and I don't know. Have you?
I've never seen a nuclear explosion. I've seen in person. Biggest I've seen is, I don't know, 1.5 pounds or so of C4. I can't remember. It was over 1 pound. It seemed like it was 1 pound and change. Plus, they were blowing up a device.
Yep.
And it's like a camera flash. I mean, it's huge. You can see the core, and you can see the shock wave come off of it, and it does make a mushroom cloud because of the heat. But that thing, it was explained to me. It's the speed of the explosion, and of course the heat and the speed. It's so much energy, and what you're seeing. If you ever watch them on the, especially the hydrogen bombs placed in a lot of humidity, and you see the white, that's actually the moisture, water being crushed out of the air, turned into steam, so it just produces a cloud. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Have you ever seen like a really heavy airplane, or sometimes you see it in person when a really heavy airplane takes off, or you see a fighter jet make a turn, or sometimes when you fire a bullet, like from a high-powered rifle through scope, they leave vapor trails.
Yep.
And it's so much as the airplane's moving, it's actually squeezing water out of the air, and it trails down the wings. Is what the bullet does, you know, and that's what that bomb does, is cause that condensation just in that huge white cloud. That's what's so, it's amazing to watch. I mean, if it wasn't such a horrible thing to have anyway, man, they're just beautiful to see them go off.
Another thing that was said was, we had a lot of floodlights on for taking movies at the control panel. When the bomb went off, the lights were drowned out by the big light coming in through the open door in the back. The heat was like opening up an oven door, even at 10 miles. Suddenly, not only was there a bright light, but where we were, 10 miles away, there was the heat of the sun on our faces. Then, only minutes later, the real sun rose, and again you felt the same heat to the face from the sunrise. So we saw 2 sunrises. So, I mean, I guess it's just, I mean, an overwhelming amount of just the heat to it.
Wow. I've never heard that. That's pretty cool.
And see, that was one of the things, that we kind of saw, and they had pictures all along the outer, I guess, the crater.
Yeah.
And you could kind of see just the crews of people and everything that were really out there for it. So
that's incredible. That's incredible to think about.
The shockwave broke windows 120 miles away, and I guess you could see the blast from a pretty good distance. And they just said it was the ammunitions bunker that exploded. And kind of reading through this, and then having them talk about that light, you've seen Empire of the Sun. Just that one scene where there's the explosion off in the distance, and you just see that flash.
Yep.
And that's kind of the only thing I could really think about as far as judging what it would have been like.
That's that I've always pictured it as, it was like an instant, kind of like a sunset here, where you can see the light that's actually coming from the horizon under the clouds. That's sort of how I pictured it.
But they talk a little bit about the night in here too, and I guess you've seen what it actually looks like and everything. See, I'd never seen it before, and I'd never really even heard of it until we went and took this trip. But they said that there are spheroid droplets inside the actual glass that was created, and what they thought was that desert sand was first scooped up into the fireball. Inside the fireball, the melted sand behaved just as water does in a regular cloud. Tiny droplets aggregated into bigger droplets that became too heavy to remain suspended and fell as the rain
of molten glass. Much of the layer was formed not on the ground, but by a rain of material injected into the fireball that melted, fell back, and collected onto the hot sand to form the observed puddles of trinitite, especially within the radius of the hottest part of the event. After falling to the ground, the top surface of the trinitite layer was still heated somewhat by the fireball, and thus developed a smooth surface.
So it just rained, quite literally rained glass, because, jeez. Unbelievable.
Yep. There's another theory saying that the glass spheres were found on site as drops that had cooled and hardened enough to keep their shape. Whenever they hit the ground, that's when...
there was enough, they'd solidified enough that they just, that makes sense.
Yeah. But, I mean, just kind of, it's almost, I mean, it's, you know, a major thing, and it's a terrible thing, but I wish you could kind of see it, you know, just to kind of see what happens. And
a little sideline, there was a man who lived 2 or 3 blocks down. I met him, and his name was Earl Craig, and he was an older guy, much older than me, and I got to know him, and he's a very wealthy oil man. He came from somewhere in the Northeast. I love to listen to the guy talk. He sounded like Thurston Howell from Gilligan's Island. Very blue blood, but just a super person. And apparently I was like the last guy in Midland, Texas to meet him, and here we were, neighbors. And we became friends. He gave me an M1 Garand rifle, World War II battle rifle, that he had bought surplus years. He bought it for like $100 in the 70s. Which, again, he's very wealthy, and he had a firearms collection that was just a drop in the bucket. And he said his kids wouldn't be interested in no military gun. But he gave me that gun. I met him in his office when he gave it to me. And he was a pilot in World War II, somewhere in Japan. They flew off of, I think he flew, maybe it was a P-47, or is that the Thunderbolt? I think it was a Thunderbolt he flew. I think it's a 47, the Jug. Anyway. He saw the one of the weapon deployments, Hiroshima or Nagasaki. He saw it from the air. Wow. He was on a patrol, and they I think he knew it was going to happen, or they knew something was going down, and they kind of knew at that point. Yeah, definitely was a second one. And to hear him describe it from the air, he saw that thing. Wow.
There had to be just a fair or a good amount of secrecy as far as, you know, getting it and dropping not just the first one, but even the second one.
Oh yeah, and just the entire process, the secrecy was incredible. I may have my facts wrong, but something I've studied somewhere along the line, they had. People pretty much lived in sequestration while they were working on this, and not just so that they wouldn't get out and spread secrets, but so they weren't vulnerable to, you know, being snatched by the bad guys or whatever, because of the turmoil at the time, that they were kind of lived in their own little. I mean, there was a town out there that was thrown up because of that, and. Of course, World War II, man, those were different times. When you talk to somebody that lived through that, you know, as young adult or kid, how the entire country was behind that effort, and people were lining up to do things like this. You know, they would told you, hey, you know, your country needs you. You got flat feet. You can't serve in the army, but we need you to stir this, you know, pot of heavy water and make highly radioactive material. And you can't see your family for a year and a half because you're gonna have to live on a farm in the middle of nowhere. And they'd be, yeah, I'm down. You know, that's we're gonna win this. So that's how they looked at it.
I was taking a look at this, and it looks like they were having, I mean, not tours, but, you know, they would have VIPs and just different people out there, and that was as early, or at least in September of that year. And with the radioactivity and everything out there, I mean, I know, like it is right now, it's not terrible,
Yeah.
And I know, like you were saying, just because of how the decay and everything is for it,
Yeah.
it may not have been as bad.
Yeah, see, and not knowing what that is, and again, my training, and all my military training, I got pretty much what everybody else got on NBC, the nuclear biochemical,
Mm-hmm.
and they have different levels of safety, and it's mitigated by your PPE, whatever kind of gear you wear, the level of exposure, and then how long you're there.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, what kind? Because there it's particulate, man. I mean, you're standing on the spot, and then it blows the effect everywhere. The weather,
Yeah.
it blows it around. So yeah, I have no idea. I know some interesting reading is check out Semipalatinsk in Russia. They did virtually all of their nuclear testing in one place, and it was at one time, probably the 80s, 90s, when I learned about it, there was a town or a little lake near the town that was the most radioactive place on Earth.
Jeez.
And it was kind of a Chernobyl sort of thing. People couldn't go there. And they have a museum dedicated to the damage and the problems. Like they had just an unbelievable rate of birth defects and illnesses and strange diseases that came from all the exposure, because it contaminates the air, the water, everything it comes in contact with.
See, I thought you for a second you were going to say they had a museum right in the center of it also.
No, if you can go to Google Earth,
Mm-hmm.
look up Semipalatinsk, and there's a guy, forgot his name. You could search his username on the Google Earth community, and he has plots of all of the known radioactive or nuclear testing above and below ground, and Semipalatinsk looks like it was hit by a shotgun. I mean, the U.S. we've at least spread ours out a little. So.
Looking at radiation, just from the chart here, it says 1 hour of the Trinity ground site is 1/2 of a millirem.
Yeah, Miram.
And then they were saying that a chest X-ray is 10, a CAT scan is 700, and coast-to-coast commercial flight is 2.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, when you get above there's less atmosphere between you and the sun. You start
getting more. Yeah.
It's one of the problems, like with high altitude when they got into the U-2 and the SR-71, was when you leave the protection of the atmosphere, you get up in the ozone, it actually eats things like rubber. Yeah, it eats rubber, it eats, can't remember, they had a lot of problems with that, building high altitude aircraft. So yeah, when you go in an airliner, and pilots are actually watched for different kinds of exposure that you're getting from the sun.
What do they do to counteract that then? I mean, as far as like with the rubber and everything, do they just not put rubber into it, or
no? They had a special rubber. I think Goodyear made it.
Mm-hmm.
They had a special compound made, and the airplanes used like exotic metals, titanium, these gold. They used silver or something like that wouldn't corrode under those conditions, because they flew hours and hours. They would leave the United States, fly over the Soviet Union, come back. So they did a lot of flying back then. So, but yeah, the pilots are protected. The air's filtered, all that. So they're in pretty good shape.
Mm. So talking about the Trinity site, talking about the atomic bombs and everything, you have to kind of ask, what is the I almost want to say cost of all of it. I mean, what do we kind of gain and lose from everything that happened?
Growing up during the Cold War, I was born in 1970, and in the 80s we were all worried about that. And there's a reason we use the term nuclear option, and it's something that's so horrible nobody ever wants to use it again. And when you look over the history of warfare, people freak out over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. you're thinking by today's standards. You're thinking by today's social mores and politics. Back then, that's just how they did it.
Yep.
That's how they knew to win. You know, I mean, Civil War, we're still fighting Napoleon's tactics. You know, World War II, if your city was a production hub, they're probably going to get bombed. You know, I mean, that was it. And in the case of what they did there, it made complete sense. And then what, man? Then everybody has it, and here we are trying to fight the really scary states that would use it right now if they had it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's horrible. I would rather not be having this conversation, man. If we go back to sticks and arrows, but you know, you go back to a stick, somebody builds a pointed stick, and then we're going to start over. Is the thing.
What are your thoughts on North Korea and even Russia with the nuclear kind of stockpile that they have going on, and with North Korea really starting to build up, or I guess allegedly building up?
Honestly, I have some Korean friends, and obviously they're South Korean. Grew up here, and hearing them talk about the North, it's going back to the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
We were kids, so I kind of had a fascination with it. And then you watch all of the bootleg footage. There's a documentary about an eye doctor that went into North Korea. That's a really interesting thing. This guy travels the world. He's a philanthropist, and he teaches doctors across the world how to do cataract surgery. And the guy went to North Korea, and that was a very intimate, very in-depth look of everything going there, and it is frightening. When you think we're crazy here, and you see that kind of thing, that's what scares me about nukes. Because the good thing is their economy is such crap, they don't have a big chance of a successful device, much less an accurate successful device, and one that can get past our defenses. Mm-hmm. So it's scary. Russia, and I'm not an authority on this, but maybe that's something that the internet shrunk world and global economy, maybe the fact that we are also dependent on each other. Mm-hmm. U.S. and China, weird relationship for a long time. Now look at us. Yeah. China kind of figured out the best of both worlds of communism and capitalism. Russia, formed the Russian Federation. They dug out somewhat of years of communism. I mean, if you read books by people that lived there during the Cold War, it was horrible. Mm-hmm. It was unreal. You start slinging nukes around, what happens to that? I mean, who's going to buy and who's going to sell? You're either a buyer or you're a seller. And, the U.S., we're a buyer. Mm-hmm. We pay people to make stuff all over the world because it's too expensive. But my 2 cents, I get a little comfort in that. So,
how likely do you think that someone would use nuclear weapons again? Do you think it's something that everyone's just going to be trying to avoid as much as they can? Just your last defense, or do you think it's going to be just someone kind of waking up one morning and be like, I'm just going to push the button today?
I don't think it's going to be that. I don't think I'll live to see.
And that's kind of what my next question, or what this question is. Do you think that we'll see it again? Maybe not in your lifetime, but in my lifetime.
Yeah, I don't think. I think no, in my lifetime, in yours maybe, and I would be more concerned about what they call rogue states or something along those lines. There are a lot of legends about Russia's missing some nukes. They don't last forever, but who knows? The dirty bomb is very likely. Something like that I could see. There are people who think in those kind of absolutes. The rest of the world doesn't. You can't. It just obliterates. When you look at the way wars are fought now, there's so much more precision. There's the intelligence is so much better. Fewer people are dying in comparison to how wars have been fought. Honestly, I just don't see where we need them. Other than hoping that you keep one under the table in case the other guy throws it down. But I don't completely understand U.S.-Russian relations right now. I've been through enough in my life. I kind of unplugged from current events pretty solid, and I'm starting to pay attention again, but still down to rogue states for me. That's what I worry about.
You've seen Superman 4, right?
Let's see, which one was that?
It's the nuclear one where he takes all the nuclear weapons
and
throws them into the sun.
Yeah. I saw that. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
It would be good to watch.
Going with that, I know it was kind of a passion project for Christopher Reeve at the time, and you see a lot of people kind of calling for just the total, dismantling of nuclear weapons. Is that something that you really foresee ever happening, or
no? Because go back to the 60s or 50s. Okay, so we have 50s were they were still using strategic bombers.
Mm-hmm.
A little more precise, not that much. They're still big, sloppy weapons. Okay. They did a lot of damage. So then we started getting into this mutually. Then we get to ICBMs and builds. And rather than saying, I have enough weaponry to fend off an attack, we've got to hit them as hard as they hit us. Or if Russia fires one, we're going to hit every single nuke site they have. We're going to hit every air base. We're going to do it all. Snap a finger. I don't think it's quite like that anymore. There are still nukes. There are tactical nukes. There are big ones. There are little ones. But more isolated. And the Syrian thing is an example. Mm-hmm. Was it 59 Tomahawks? One of them missed. Yeah. I was hanging with a buddy of mine that had some experience with the JDAM device that goes onto a dumb bomb, like a rock eye or something. Turns, one bomb that they used to be dropped by the thousands of tons, all the way up into Vietnam, just carpet bombing. And now you can do it with one or maybe two. You don't have so. It's a long way of me saying it's a less sloppy affair than it used to be. So I don't think the whole mutually assured destruction thing it's kind of sort of still there, but nobody's going to get rid of them as long as the other guy has them or has some or has them all or whatever, especially with the rogue states, because what if somebody's popping them off? What are you going to do? So
it's almost an insurance as much as it is.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. That's one thing people are good at, making weapons. We always have been, man. Since the pointed stick, we've gotten really good at it. So, yeah.
You mentioned a little bit about war a second ago, and how there have been less deaths compared to previous.
Right.
Do you think that's because you start seeing more like drones, and you're starting to see, a lot more like not unmanned?
Yeah, definitely that. I'm not a combat veteran. I was in the Coast Guard. I've been a cop my entire career, but just if you talk to a Vietnam vet, if you talk to a World War II vet, Korea, there was a lot of wholesale stuff in those days. Nowadays, it's like Syria, one target with sub-targets. So it's an airfield. So you have an airfield, and you hit the hangars and the bunkers, and you crater up the runways. How hard would that have been in World War II? Okay, you got to get there first of all. You gotta get there and not get shot down. You don't have, huge, reliable radar nets. I mean, they had radar. But you have to get through flak. You have to get through interceptors. Then they could black out. It was the thing in World War II. Turn on an entire city. Poof, disappear. You can't see. There's no FLIR. There's no IR. So what do? You drop a lot of munition in hopes that you hit something, and there's the collateral damage. Look at London, look at Berlin. All the big targets. Now it doesn't matter. Any rain, any time, you need one building down, takes one munition, and we can send it without a guide. Was it San Angelo? They run drones. Yeah, guy. Some kid likes playing an Xbox, and so yeah, no risk of life there. And back to Skunk Works and the F-117. That thing was unveiled in the first Iraq War, and I saw it firsthand how amazed the world was when that happened. There were rumors of stealth technology, things leaked. We saw a few, we hear about it, we see it, and then the videos of Baghdad where all of the AAA batteries are just firing into the air because you have no idea what's going on. It's just your shit just starts blowing up around you, and there's no sound, there's no you don't see anything, and that's what we're dealing with now. And they had really accurate GPS guided munition then, so yeah, that changed the face of it. It truly did.
I think that may be it. Anything that you want to add as far as
that? Where I was going, you have to see the Albuquerque Museum, because everything was atomic. To be cool, it was atomic, right? Like in you and I, our generations, everything had to be extreme.
Yeah,
extreme nachos, extreme fajitas, all that. Back then, it was atomic. They had all the toys. They had atomic guns, atomic this, atomic that.
You start seeing I guess more Buck Rogers. And different things
like that. Yeah. Everything's atomic and all cool. There were toys, the X-ray tubes that cost a lot of cancer. And they used in shoe stores. Radioactive water was the thing for a while. They have dispensers for radioactive water that people drink for health. I mean, they're consuming ways. Now, can it be healthful? Yeah, radiation saved my life, but I don't drink it on a regular basis. Then you get into the crazy weapons, man. They had bombs, the airdrop, and then they had dumb rockets. You look at the Honest John. Let's see, what was the other one? Pershing. It was guided. They're conventional, but they can also be fitted nuclear. The GAM-63 parked out front of Goddard. I did a blog post.
I remember.
That.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that was the nuclear capable. It was designed, and it strapped onto a bomber and was launched. And you talk about a toxic nightmare, just the fuels and everything. But they developed a cannon, atomic Annie. I forget the diameter. It's enormous, and they lobbed nuclear payloads with it. They had the craziest thing in the world. Look at the Davy Crockett. If it's M109 or M something. It's a recoilless rifle, which a recoilless rifle looks kind of like a big bazooka. And it looks like something Wile E. Coyote mail ordered from Acme. It has a bomb sticking on the end of it, like this cartoon-looking bomb that was a nuclear warhead. It could be fired from a Jeep or a tripod. And it wasn't great because they don't have a lot of range, recoilless rifle compared to artillery or anything else. So it was really tough for them to field it to get out of the effects of the weapon. Like, it wouldn't blow you up, but if the wind's blowing a certain direction, you can't deploy it because you can't get out of there fast enough before the cloud comes back on you. And if the wind is at your enemy's back or the target's back, you can't use it. So it didn't use it at all, ever. And there were all kinds of crazy. There were even we talked about this last Wednesday. A bunch of guys were hanging out at Murray's. There was experimenting with nuclear hand grenades.
See, I was about to ask about that too.
There was just, they thought, hey, this is cool, man. Well, let's make a nuclear version of it. They looked at nuclear airplanes. They may have even prototyped one. I can't remember. Obviously, we still have nuclear vessels, which is it's actually pretty practical for that. I had no idea how many accidents we've had, munitions accidents. They have the cases from a bunch of them at Albuquerque. I mean, they had dropped crap all over the place. They had fighter planes that could deploy nuclear weapons. Was it 104, 105? One of those was designed for it. I mean, if there was a means, if there was a weapon of throwing nukes at somebody, it was experimented with. And so, it's kind of looked at as think about now, force multipliers, what we talk about. If it's smaller and more precise, that's what we need. Yeah. So it works out.
Well, I guess even then with nuclear, with radiation and everything, you start getting things like your chemotherapy and X-ray scanning and I guess even the CAT scans and all that too. So I mean, there's a lot of not just medical advances, but there are a lot of advances for it.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, they used to watches. Now we use phosphorus and tritium. They used radium for a while. They could kill some people. Then nuclear in it. Yeah, they've done a lot of weird stuff. A lot of it was before they really understood the effects with it, but the subsequent tests were really scary. They hurt a lot of people that way. In fact, there was an interesting story of a movie Western being filmed in Nevada during some testing, and there's kind of call it a conspiracy theory, but that's how John Wayne.
I was actually just about to say that because I know it was like Conquer. I think the movie was called, and it was a Genghis Khan movie.
Was it? I was thinking it was a Western. Yeah. But they were popping nukes up the road, and it's like everybody died. John Wayne died of stomach cancer, and he drank like a fish. So who knows? But yeah. They it's kind of a learning curve on all that, and you get something like semipallatans. I wonder how much of that happened here. How much of it popped up in the water table. I mean, it wasn't a desert, so how long did it take? How much made it? I don't know. Somewhere in there, I have an old Army field manual from Vietnam era that talks about it, and the different kinds of particles, and the different kind of radiation, and the different means to stop it. How deep you have to dig a hole, and how to decontaminate, and it is just. I can't imagine something just that insidious. You look at the bomb shelters that people dug, and there's still some houses around here. This house was built during the Cold War. You look at those, and you start kind of putting two and two together, and you go, would that have done any damn good? I mean, so you can live in a hole for 6 months with your family in a civil defense radio. Now what? How long is it going to take? But yeah, unbelievable stuff.
I wonder how many bomb shelters are really out here in Midland and everything. Because I know during the 40s and 50s and during the Cold War, that would have been something, or from everything that I've seen, that's been something that was pretty popular, or at least talked about a lot. Yeah.
One thing about here, we're at the bottom end of Tornado Alley, so storm shelters were pretty common, and also in the desert. People had cellars for cooling, to store dry goods. They doubled as a bomb shelter, which is really great because if you lived on a farm, like my family did back during the Depression and before the Depression, my grandmother was telling me, they had their food stores, they had all kinds of things in this cool basement, and so if a tornado or something came, you shoot underground. Well, you have everything you need there. You protect from the storm. You got food. You have hopefully water. But other places, the Midwest, the Northeast, actually Northeast, I think they had a lot of basements, but out toward California, places that really shot out during the baby boomer area right after the war, those were the guys who were digging basements because they just didn't, the houses were slab built. There was really no need for it, and they were digging holes left and right. And even some around here, like I said, my house doesn't have one. It was, like I said, 55, a little later than post-war, but they didn't have cellars here. If you wanted one, you had to build it. And I know some of them have just cat holes, like in closets. People cut a hole in their slab.
Okay.
And most of that's for tornadoes and such. But civil defense shelters, they had bomb shelters in towns, and you still see old air raid sirens here and there. And in fact, there's a couple going out toward Big Spring.
Oh, there really?
I think that, right there, the Moss Lake cutoff.
Okay.
And there's a few old ones. Of course, we have new ones now, but they had the old electromechanical, the big horns that would spin. And that was a big deal back then.
I know over by the courthouse in Big Spring, there's a fallout shelter. Just a nuclear fallout shelter and all that. Is there a place like that here in Midland? Or is that something that they put in different cities? Or is it just kind of a...
That I can't answer. I don't know of any here. I've never heard of one. I'm sure there's probably some older cats that could tell you for sure. But I don't remember. In Midland, because of the crude oil farm, was supposed to be a pretty hot target. I know when the 9/11 happened, I was a street cop, and they were really worried about that. We were watching that very carefully. But I don't know of anything like that. No, wait, that was in Odessa. There was a church or something over there that had a big basement. They built it, and they had a basement in it that became one. It's privately owned. I was going to tell you, one of the things I really enjoyed is talking to veterans. A lot of guys that are just, a little older than me, served during the tail end of it, in the 70s and 80s. And they came back with stories. And one guy, one of the coolest stories, during the SR-71 years. The SR-71, super high altitude, super fast. I think she came online, in the 60s? I'm already getting all my numbers. No, 60s was U-2, so in the 70s, 80s. This thing flew over Mach 3 at 70, 80,000 feet. It was too high and too fast for anything to shoot it down. And they would fly over Russia and take pictures. And one of my friends was he was a crewman on a KC-135 on the tankers. And the SR-71s, they would often fuel them. They would take off and refuel because uses a lot of fuel to take off, and they would leak before they took off.
Just leak fuel?
Yeah. They stretched. There was so much heat that they would stretch, and the tanks would seal up once the aircraft got through stretching. It would seal up, but they would lose a lot of fuel, and it takes a lot to get off the ground. But they would refuel them when they took off, and then they would refuel them again before they landed at some point. I can't remember the whole story. The guy, he explained it to me that it was like a safety measure so that they would have enough fuel to land without incident. I don't remember, like if they weather changed or something, that these guys wouldn't be stuck out. And so who did that? Military Airlift Command? I don't remember who was in charge of refueling back then. But they timed their missions to fly training routes and such. They would take off like out of the Northeast or somewhere on the coast, Greenland, and they would drop the boom, which, according to what they were telling me, the Russians could see the boom on radar. They would know that the boom is down, but they wouldn't see any other airplanes around it. Right? So they just fly like an imaginary refueling mission. They go home. and then they would wait a specific amount of time, and they would do the same thing out of Japan. So there's absolutely no other airplanes other than these two tankers, but the Russians were going crazy looking for what they're refueling that's flying over Russia. That they did that kind of stuff a lot. So, I always liked that story.
Mm-hmm.
Another one guy flew. He was I can't remember if it was my buddy's father or brother, but he was stationed in New Jersey, and I want to say it was the 104 or 105, the fighter that was supersonic, nuclear capable. You know, carried a giant nuclear bomb, and they're the ones that they would scramble when the Bear B, the big Russian bomber, was going to come over and level the United States. Well, they're the ones that were going to shoot it down or drop bombs on Russian ships. I have no idea. They carried nukes. They're fighters, and so they would practice their scrambles. You know, they'd wake their pilots up in the middle of the night. They'd run and get in their airplanes and fly around. Well, they had these bombs. They're probably filled with concrete. They used to do that were inert versions of the nuclear weapon, and that the crews would practice loading them on the racks, and the pilots would fly and do their little simulation and come back. And on this bomb is painted the words "inert nuclear device," and it's painted on both sides. Okay, so you have to think about it. You know, it says it this way and it says it this way. This is very important. They flew a mission and they came back and landed, and the bomb's gone on one of them. And they didn't really drop them. Yeah. Okay, it was all simulated. It was there for the crews. Not only did they have to load the plane, they had to unload it if they didn't shoot it, and this all had to be done carefully. Well, it came back without its bomb, and they asked the pilot, "Dude, where is it?" So, I have no idea. Just not here. It fell off. And they flew some search missions, and finally they flew the route. Nothing had happened, and so pretty much they all just go inside, pop a beer, and sit down and wait for the phone to ring. And it did, and it was Jersey or Delaware, somewhere up there. There was a crater in a vacant lot with this, big torpedo-looking thing sticking in it, and you couldn't see the word "inert" on one side where it was dug in. It just said "nuclear device" poked in the ground, so people freaked out pretty well. So, a little lighter side to all that.
I guess that's it then. Thank you for sitting down and kind of talking with us about all this. I know we kind of started, and it was more the idea to kind of focus on that Trinity thing, but I mean, we kind of went off, and I don't think it was a bad, little side tangent that we went off into.
It's only because I know a lot more about that, about the Cold War stuff. I'm into aviation and rocketry and that kind of military history, and that's my thing.
That's fine. I guess again, for anyone that doesn't know, you have that blog, the Matt's Blog of Wonders.
Matt's World of Wonders.
Or Matt's World of Wonders. Sorry.
Matt's World of Wonders is my written blog. I've got a couple posts coming out this week or early next week. I do a few things on YouTube, man. I haven't found a home on what I'm doing on YouTube, but I have a few mildly interesting things, and I'm glad to finally be on this one. You came up on Reddit the other day about undiscovered pages. You're just gonna blow off the charts one day, and I have appeared on Tim's a couple times. So.
Well, I know we linked a video of yours. So it was whenever Scott built that guitar for you, or for the bass.
Oh yeah, the bass.
We linked your review of that to Scott's interview. So
yeah, and let's see, Tim. I went with Tim. He did a blog, moto blog to trip to my observatory, Winding Stairway Observatory in Blackwell, and that was fun.
Yeah.
So
I've been talking with Tim, and I'm trying to talk him into putting together a trip to go out to Roswell and just kind of see.
That would be fun. Yeah, that would be. There's so much interesting history in that little corner of Texas and New Mexico, and even right here, man. We had the old air base, all the targets out here. Tim and I've been looking at that, and it's hard to find the targets, but they're old, the old airway arrows. Those are all over the place here. I've been meaning to put together a video on our experience in the Quads. You know, finding the lost airplanes. There's a ton of military aviation history tied up in the mountains. So there's a lot to be done in that neighborhood.
And that is going to be it for us today. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, send us a tweet, and we will see you next time. Bye.